and it was not available. I agree with there.
Okay.
I wish to raise the following issue under corporate, Chairman. I've been seeking information from the defective concrete block grant scheme application section that is vital to me finalising a submission that I'm making to all the Oireachtas members and to the Committee on Housing that will be more likely be debating the forthcoming bill on the new enhanced scheme. And I wish to raise the following concerning it. There's 773 applications pending sitting in Donegal County Council. 7 of those have completed works. Now, those applications have what's called a Test Suite C, a Test Suite A, and a Test Suite B. Now, the Petrolab results, and they're in their hundreds, are clearly showing and identifying a visual estimate of iron sulfide minerals above 0.1%. And there's a small number of Test Suite Cs, which is further additional testing. And my cousin's and my father's house, both of those 2 Test Suite Cs done. Now, my cousin's application, my father hasn't gone into the scheme, but my cousin's application is sitting in Donegal County Council with the Test Suite C result, which indicates the percentage of iron sulfide minerals. Now, the reason why I want this is to prove that the predominant problem in Donegal is not just mica. Mica is only part of the problem. These results in the Test Suite B visual estimates and Petrolab results in particular are indicating that the percentages are 1,000% above the 0.1%, up to 2,000% above the 0.1% permitted for iron sulfide such as pyrrhotite and others in concrete and concrete blocks. Now, I have been corresponding with the leading expert in the world on this subject, Dr. Andres Lehmann, and I have sent him my father's test results A, B, and C, and my cousin's test results A, B, and C. And I've also sent him 3 letters that were sent to us as members from Dr. Ambrose McCluskey concerning his engineering fears that are not being abided by government at the minute. The solution that the government are going to put together in this enhanced scheme is not the proper solution for this problem. And I want to read this from Dr. Andres Lehmann, who is the top expert in the world. Dear Mr. McBrearty, it is crystal clear for me how the mica problem should be approached from a scientific point of view. It is a mystery to me why no major research project involving international experts has been launched already years ago. The narrative is that the presence of free mica and chlorite, usually not mentioned, leads to a decrease in concrete quality. Correct. And make the blocks vulnerable to frost. Not correct. A fertile imagination is needed in particular to explain cracking of the inner leaves by frost damage observed in some houses. All these reports, like the one from Petrolab, are sound in principle. Of course, they are purely descriptive. The crucial point here is that the reason for the failing of the blocks is not identified and described by sound scientific results. If this was the case, the testing labs would know what to look for. I have studied samples from 4 houses, and the 4 houses in question, the samples came from Professor Paul Dunlop down in Buncrana. It is completely clear what happens from the variation of the phenomenon between the individual houses and even between locations and single samples from one house. I have a pretty good idea which are the decisive parameters that lead to variations in the degree of damage. Of course, the number of samples I've studied is very limited, and I cannot assess if they are representative of other damaged houses. Now, on that information that he has sent to me, the information contained in the scientific results, in particular Test Suite B, sitting in the application section, which has been denied to me as a member, which I need for a submission to the committee and to the Dail before they pass this bill, which is very, very important to homeowners. And then the next email he sends me, which is very brief, but it's very informative. It goes as follows. Dear Mr. McBrearty, thank you for sending me the documents. I just had time to have a quick look at them. However, it is pointed out in the Mica letter, which is Dr. Ambrose McCluskey's 3 letters he's referring to, clearly what the main problem is: the identification of the deterioration mechanism. Measures taken to master the crisis will be flawed without knowing what is really happening, likely prolonging the crisis. Mica, as the problem maker, is a pure hypothesis without any scientific evidence. What should be the mechanism here? Question mark. Frost has claimed, question mark. People claiming this likely have never heard of the critical water saturation in regards to the frost damage. Pyrrhotite oxidation with internal sulfide attack is not a hypothesis but backed up by scientific evidence, although just in 4 cases. The gaps in the knowledge and understanding of the problem are still huge. Best regards. Now, we have a civil engineer, John Gallagher, who has sat on the government working group, and Patsy Lafferty can confirm this. Now, I'm asking the question today: did John Gallagher tell this information to that working group of what is actually showing up in Test Suite B results in the application section of Donegal County Council? Now, this is vital information that needs to be given to government so that they include this information in the bill that they're proposing now in the coming weeks and months in Dáil Éireann to pass an enhanced scheme, which is going to be unworkable if they do not include the issues that I've raised here today. Now, the solution that has been brought about by government to fix the homes of Donegal is not the correct solution to deal with this problem in Donegal. The only one solution on the scientific results, from my understanding, from what I've been told, from information contained in the applications, there's only one solution. Option 1, full demolition and rebuild. Not option 2, 3, 4, and 5, which only cures part of the problem, doesn't get rid of the problem out of the house, because the inner leaf block and the concrete and the foundations is going to be affected by further deterioration of and oxidization of the block itself, which culminates in sulfuric acid attack, the formation of thomsite, and the secondary formation of gypsum. Now, these are the issues, Chairman, that are not being discussed by Council. And Donegal County Council are sitting on the information in their application section that undoubtedly proves that there's a fundamental issue with IS 465, which I've already admitted publicly. That should be withdrawn. And it should be withdrawn on the grounds that the Irish standard for defective concrete blocks is not created around the standards for manufacturing blocks and concrete. That standard is an EU standard, and as an EU, the standards are ISEN 12620. The standard recommendation is SR 16. The other vital standard is ISEN 7713, and the standard recommendation for that, which is the Newton strength of the block, is standard recommendation SR 325. Now, and there's other standards on top of that. There's so many of them, but those are the 4 main issues here why IS 465 is a flawed standard. A flawed standard created around to create a solution that doesn't actually solve the problem. Now, if you park the 100% aspect of this, you must first of all have a solution to the problem, and engineers have an obligation, morally, legally, and ethically. They have an obligation to clients and homeowners, and that includes council engineers. They should be going solely on the engineering solution that eradicates the deleterious materials and iron sulfide minerals out of homes and properties in Donegal. And they're not doing that, and some of them are hiding behind the legislation, and some of them are hiding behind the statutory instrument 9010 scheme, which will now become the new enhanced scheme. Now, their obligation as engineers is to advise their clients properly what the proper solution is to this. And that's not been done. And I need this information, Chairman, that Patsy has refused to give to me. I'm not looking for anybody's data. I'm not looking for anybody's information. All I'm looking for is how many test Suite B results, are showing visual estimates of iron sulfide minerals which is very, very important for my final submission to the committee in Dail that is going to be dealing with this issue when the bill comes before them now in the coming weeks. And that is vital for homeowners who can't afford to go the legal route, like my father can, like my cousin who's entered the scheme, but now has realised that the scheme is a complete failure. Now, it's a very simple question, Chairman. I'm asking that the council, I've made 2 FOIs on it, have been refused. I'm looking for that information and I'm requesting that information be given to me today or in the next couple of days so that I can finalise my submission to government. I have a forensic knowledge of this subject, just like I have with the guards.
Is not sort of captured or recorded in a manner that allows us to easily extract that information to share. What we have been doing at the request of the department, that we have been submitting copies of reports to the department, which they're sharing with GSI and the National Standards Authority for the purpose exactly of what the councillor is outlining. And the department or those other agencies will be forensically examining these reports and extracting the data from them, which the local authority don't have the resources to do, and the local authority's role is particularly to administer the scheme. So that's why, I suppose, we haven't been able to provide the information, but what we're doing is we're providing reports to the department to allow them through NSAI and GSI to carry out this analysis going forward.
Chairman, just one point. Every test suite B from Petrolab, and they're in their hundreds, clearly states a visual estimate. It's not very hard for a qualified engineer. I'm not an engineer, and I can read the reports because I have a lot of experience in proofreading. The information contained in those test suite Bs, I want to know how many of those test suite Bs are showing visual estimates between 1 and 2%, which is between 1,000 and 2,000% above the recommended level of 0.1% that is supposed to be the level for the manufacturing of concrete and concrete blocks. It's simple, Patsy. It's a simple equation. Just give me the number. It's a 200, 300 test suite B showing a visual estimate of 1 to 2% of iron sulfide minerals, which is a way above the recommended level of 0.1%. That's all I'm asking for. That shouldn't be hard. What I would like to know, it's obvious that it's not a civil engineer that's making decisions on these reports. If it was, a civil engineer would know by looking at the reports, the test suite B reports coming from Petrolab in particular, that there's a serious problem other than Mica. Mica is not the problem. My father's house and my cousin's house has got the following. It's got free muscovite mica at 16%. It's got reactive pyrite at 0.1%. It's got pyrrhotite at 6.9%. And the rest of the sulfides make up to 2.4%. And those are rare pyrite, minor pyrite, chalcopyrite, marcasite, and then the formation of iron sulfides, sulfuric acid, thomsite, which is another chemical, comes from the formation of out of iron sulfides, and the secondary formation of gypsum. It's simple, Patsy. Just give me the number. I'm not looking for no data. I'm looking for a number. Is it 10, 20, 200, 300? So I can make a submission that I'm entitled to as an elected member of local government to our national government concerning the issues that homeowners are going to be facing with another unworkable scheme. I'm not interested in what the council does with their applications. That's their process. I'm just looking for a number, Chairman, so I can make my submission on scientific evidence to prove that the problem is not just Mica. Now, an engineer in this county in 2013 put a seed into everybody's mind that this problem was predominantly a Mica problem, when it's not. My father's scientific evidence and his results, and Dr. Lehman's correspondence with me, proves otherwise. Now, he says that the 4 leading experts in the world, 1 in Canada and 2 in Connecticut in the US, and himself and his own colleague, which is 5, they should be requested by the Irish government to come in here and actively start a study that hasn't been undertaken by government or by Donegal County Council today. We're facing thousands and thousands of properties, not just homeowners, 1,300 houses in our own social housing stock, that are affected by this. It's going to be in the 50,000s. The problem with this infrastructure problems with bridges and walls, retaining walls, etc. And that's the reality. Closing a blind eye to this is not going to make it go away. All I'm asking, and I'm begging you, Chairman, for them to give me that figure so I can put it in my submission to the Housing Committee that's going to be dealing with this bill, and that I can send it to every TD before they vote on this legislation, which will pass into law another unworkable scheme for homeowners in this county. Petrol Lab, that's all you have to go through. So why isn't it in the bill then, Patsy? Why is it not in the bill? Why did John Gallagher not raise these issues in the working group? I mean, these issues are in black and white evidence, Chairman. The evidence is there to clearly prove that the scientific evidence shows that the problem is not Mica. Mica is only part of the problem. No, I'm only looking for the number. They would have had them. They've already looked at them, Chairman. You can't. The data protected. All the people's names and addresses are all. Which I don't know the people. Hey, Chairman, it's simple. It's really simple. There's a test suite B result visual estimate and each of the Petrol Lab results, which will be coming back in the council results. That visual estimate will show that this is not a Mica problem. That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking whether it's 10, 20, 200 or 300. Now my understanding is there's over 300 Petrol Lab results sitting in Donegal County Council's application section. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I've been told. Because this is vital information for this bill that's going before the Dail, and this information is not in that bill. Dr. Andrews Lehman's contribution to the EU webinar, which was 29 minutes, and his contribution to me and corresponds to me, is vital information that should be in any bill for any understanding, for any debates on this whole subject of all deleterious materials and all iron sulfide minerals. Because this is not just a mica and reactive pyrite problem, this is an all deleterious materials and sulfide mineral problems. And the test results that are sitting in your application section are indicating that the predominant problem is iron sulfide minerals. And as Dr. Lehman says, mica does not cause swelling and cracking, iron sulfides do. And that is the predominant problem here. Now, I'm not frightened to say this. I'm not a qualified academic, but I'm an academic, Patsy. And anybody underestimates my skills at proofreading over the years, which I've put to great use. How else would I be able to sit here, Patsy, and say what I've said off the top of my head? I have no notes. I said that all off the top of my head. I know the subject inside out like I did Garda corruption. And I won't stop till the people of Donegal get the proper solution to the problem. The other problem is 100%. But before you can go for 100%, you must have the proper engineering solution on scientific-based evidence to give the people of Donegal the proper solution to what the problem is with their home. Then you start to work then getting the amount of money that you need to get off government. You can't put the donkey before the cart. But hey, Chairman, I'm a member of the local government. But it's not a hard thing for. If I've been turned down an appeal on an FOA, and I'm going to appeal it, Patsy, to the Information Commissioner. But the thing about it is, it'll probably be too late at that stage by the time I'll get that information from the council, because my submission needs to be in before that bill gets started to be debated. But your ultimate the resources don't come into the equation of this. The most important aspect in this council at the minute is what I've raised here today, And the most important aspect is for you to supply me the information on the number of test suite Bs and the small number of test suite Cs that are actually showing the percentages of iron sulfide minerals, so that I can have that information in my submission to the housing committee that's going to be dealing with this bill. No, but morally, Patsy, we have a responsibility as a council. No, but we have a responsibility morally as a council to ensure that the legislators have the full information on what the issues are and the problems in Donegal. Well, the only one thing I want to raise is the other aspect is the question. You have the test suite A results back from the 8 houses in St Johnston. And I don't understand why you didn't give me them. I mean, the test suite B results are not back yet. You don't have the complete report, but you have the test suite A results back, which show you what is either high or critical, the problem. More than likely, because of the state them houses are in now, they're probably critical. Test suite A. So I mean, it wouldn't have been very hard to give me the test suite A. But it's disappointing to see that no other houses are actually tested yet. Only the 8 in St Johnston in this municipal district. Because anytime Corn are the best corn contractor who has the contract for doing it. And Petrolab is the best lab in the UK and the British Isles, which includes Ireland. Well, you've heard what I said, Chairman, on the aspect of what I've raised there now, and that's the reason why I put this motion forward. But I mean, I am calling on the members of the Lifford Stranorlar MD to reject the government's proposals for the enhanced effective concrete block grant scheme if the following is not included in the bill coming before the Dáil in the coming weeks. 1. A true 100% redress with no caps. 2. All deleterious materials and iron sulfide minerals such as pyrrhotite, chalcopyrite, marcasite, rare pyrite, minor pyrite, and others. 3. Laboratory testing for all deleterious materials and all iron sulfide minerals to replace and scrap the proposed building condition assessment. 4. Withdrawing of IS 465 as the standard for defective concrete blocks. 5. All 9010 applications sitting in Donegal County Council to be processed into the new enhanced scheme on their scientific results without any delay, and that they are given option 1 full demolition 723 in brackets. 6. Options 2, 3, 4 and 5 be withdrawn, with only option 1 being retained due to iron sulfides being the predominant problem in the defective concrete block homes in Donegal. 7. The full demolition of foundations be included due to the presence of iron sulfides in the defective concrete blocks. 8. Any laboratory unable to test for iron sulfides be disqualified. 9. Chain of custody rules to be changed to allow for qualified and registered corn contractors to extract samples without a chartered engineer being present, so they can send cord samples under the scheme's rules directly to labs like Petrolab, who test for all deleterious materials and iron sulfide minerals. 10. Scientific testing to replace damage threshold criteria as proposed in the new enhanced grant scheme. I'm not trying to block the enhanced scheme. What I'm saying is that those 10 issues are vital that they're included in this new enhanced scheme, so that there's a proper solution to the problem that Donegal homes are facing. And that solution is full demolition and rebuild. And the fact is now that the damage threshold, if I identify all those results in my tests, if my damage threshold is not at a certain threshold, I can't even enter the scheme. Even though my scientific test results in my father's house, as an example, clearly shows that I have all deleterious materials and all iron sulfide minerals in my blockwork. Unless my cracks are at a certain level to get through the damage threshold, then my house is rejected from getting into the scheme until whatever time I meet the damage threshold And that still doesn't guarantee you getting option number one, which is full demolition. Why would you use a solution and option 2, 3, 4, and 5, which only gives you remedial works of outer relief, when that still leaves you with foundations affected by iron sulfide minerals, and the inside of your block and your house still has a problem with mica, pyrite, pyrrhotite, and all the other iron sulfide minerals? It doesn't make sense because you're only prolonging the problem down the road. Let's fix this problem now, and let's fix it today, not 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, where we're going to continue to be revisiting homes if they don't fully demolish the home and rebuild it.
What I have to respect systems out there, and look, we challenge the system every day. We have a Mica group from the council, we have a Mica group in the county, McBrearty, and the other county governor, and they can always get, and they're all working, and they're no happy, and they can't write nothing. And we have committed, every single councillor in this council has committed 100% nonetheless, but start and reject, we're going to reject some. So I would ask Michael, let's pull us more down there, but don't ask us to reject something like we don't even know where we're going to go, like reject it. And like we could do it here and just say tokenism with the fans, so it doesn't matter, we're only an MD, but this is true. I have relations that have Mica, everybody in this room and staff and friends, we're not going to play at this game, but we support the franchise and we would accept that plan. You know, we fully support what they say there, but just leave the word reject.
But the reject word is not in the context of rejecting the scheme.
No.
It's rejecting the fact that these are not included. How can anybody support them, Chairman?
No.
I mean, how can you support a bill like this? Is we're asking the Dail deputies, all of them collectively, 160 of them, to look at this and make sure that these items are within the bill.
Sorry, just look, I spoke to Sharon I spoke to Sharon and Alton about it. This is come on the request of the Shrams now for artists not out there. We feel that the artists that say that new artists, blind artists have definitely with eyesight not there, but definitely excluded because, you know, if you're, say you're unemployed, job seeker and sort of thing, or say there's an holiday, you can actually come off that for a while and work this and get the most out of it. If you're blind, you know, and it's particularly hard something then to say that parents so much they're not going to get. And you know, as one that we have, and I'll fail with promotion of like the blind test Francis Brown.